What's up, my Wizards Dev? SBMTG on the YouTube.com. You like magic, and I've got more Kaladesh spoilers for you today, like I will for the next 3 weeks here. So get ready for that. Late last night and all through the day, Wizards has been spoiling cards. Whether it's on Twitter, they've done that. Whether at PAX, they've done that. They've given Tolarian Community College and MTA, Magic the Amateuring, some spoiler cards. So they've been really spreading the love today. I'm going to sort of give you an aggregate of all the spoilers from the whole day. So let's check it out right now. First, I'm going to talk about some creatures that are just completely vanilla. I want to get these out of the way. First, there's Curio Vendor. He's just a 2-mana 2/1. The cool thing about it is that it's Vidalkin. There are Vidalkins here on this plane. That's not so bad. There's Terror of the Fairgrounds. Easily the most boring creature we've seen so far in the set. Just a 4-mana 5/2. It's a Gremlin, and Gremlins look really weird on this plane. And then there's Tasseled Dromedary, my favorite of the bunch, because it's basically a functional reprint of Yoked Ox. But it's a camel, and it's the most pretentious looking camel ever, and Tasseled Dromedary is the most pretentious name ever. I love everything about this card, from the art to the fact that it's Yoked Ox. Yay, Yoked Ox is back. Speaking of things that are back, here's Aether Trade Winds right here. It's 3 mana, 2 generic, and a blue for an instant. Return target permanent you control and target permanent you don't control to their owner's hands. This is an all-the-way reprint right here. It's cool that it can return any permanent. That's kind of nice. But aside from that, I'm not really sure about standard play, although it looks really, really nice in limited formats. That being said, we are seeing a lot of Enter the Battlefield tricks and stuff like that. We've already got a bunch of ETBs in standard, before this set even comes out. So something like this could be really, really nice. Return something to their hand and get another ETB trigger off one of your guys. Not terrible. There were a lot of cards today that remind me of other cards. And I think Wizards maybe did that on purpose. Like, hey, you see this? It's a lot like this. So I'm going to go through some of those real quick. The first thing is this right here. This is Fleetwood Cruiser. It's 4 generic mana for a 5/3 artifact vehicle with trample and haste. And when it enters the battlefield, it becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. It's also got Crew 2, which we know what that means by now. This reminds me in some ways of Juggernaut, 4 mana, 5/3 artifact creature from way back in the day that a lot of people played in aggressive decks. This thing's actually kind of a little bit better. I love that it's just the turn you play it, it automatically can't attack. You don't have to crew it or anything like that. 4 mana for 5 damage out of nowhere is not a terrible deal. So we'll have to see. I'm not really sure that it hits standard, but I really like some of these vehicles in limited environments. This looks like it might be shaping up to be a pretty fast limited environment. And we'll usually get all of the commons and uncommons, sort of the leftovers, in the last couple of days of spoilers, and that really fills out what limited is going to look like. So we're not really sure what limited is just yet, but just from what they've shown us so far, looking like it's going to be relatively fast. Here's a neat one. This is Ship Stalker. Way back in the day, just like Juggernaut, we had this card called Dragon Whelp. This is it right here. That was a really good card a long time ago, but that shows you how far Magic has come. This is a much, much, much better version of that card because it does a lot of things. This costs 4 mana, just like Whelp, 2 and 2 red. It's a 3/3 with flying, and it has it has pay a red mana. Ship Stalker gets +1/+0 until end of turn. It's got pay a red mana. Ship Stalker gains first strike until end of turn, and it's got pay a red mana. Ship Stalker gains haste until end of turn. So we've got a pumpable sort of Swiss Army knife that can get first strike whenever it's in trouble in combat. It can get haste. We can play it late in the game when we have 8 mana and just deal a bunch of damage out of nowhere. That's a pretty cool thing about the card. But I don't think that it's anywhere near as good as some of the stuff that we have that's, first of all, that's rotating. This isn't a Thunderbreak Regent. Similar, same casting cost, it's a dragon, it flies, all that. But if I had to play one or the other, I'd pick Regent all day. And Regent hasn't seen all of the standard play. Formats they differ from one another. For all we know, this could be amazing in the upcoming format, but I'm just thinking it's not quite there. This is Filigree Familiar, and isn't he adorable? He's 3 mana for an artifact creature, Fox. He's a 2/2. When Filigree Familiar enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life. When Filigree Familiar dies, you draw a card. So he sort of reminds me of Bottle Gnomes, or even more so, Solemn Simulacrum. He seems like a sort of, powered down version of Simulacrum in some ways. And he could definitely see some standard play if we see some sort of sacrifice deck. And people are talking about him in sort of mid-rangey control decks even. Drop him early on in the game, he gains you a little bit of life. He's a good blocker. When he dies, he gets you card advantage. These are all things that mid-range and control decks like. So the guy is just full of value. It's at the uncommon level. I don't think it's going to see all the play, but it definitely could have a role in a couple of different decks. Depends on what we can build. Here's Live Fast. This is 3 mana, 2 generic and a black for a sorcery with you draw 2 cards, lose 2 life, and get 2 energy counters. Okay, so they're replacing Read the Bones, and that's awesome because I didn't want to have to play this thing right here that nobody ever remembers the name of. But I didn't want to play that. I'm glad that we have this. Good way to get energy counters. Drawing 2 cards is always nice. We don't really care in a lot of these decks about losing 2 life. Again, see Read the Bones, Sign in Blood, those kind of cards. So really happy to have this thing around, and I love that you get 2 energy counters off of it. That's going to be really effective. Speaking of black cards that give you energy counters, this right here is Tolarian Community College's preview card for the season. This is Dyoung. It's 2 mana, a generic and a black, for a sorcery. Choose target creature, you get 2 energy counters, then you can pay any amount of energy. The creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn for each energy paid this way. So I really hate the sorcery speed on this a lot, but I do love that it gives you 2 energy counters, and you could just use this as basically, as long as you have a creature to target, you could always just use this to pay 2 mana and get 2 energy counters. It has that bit of flexibility. But this will be used in the early game as removal a lot, and maybe even in the late game, depending on how many energy counters you could give. This could be better than a Grasp of Darkness in some situations, although people will probably still elect to play Grasp over this for the time being. It all depends on how important energy counters are in Standard, and it looks, from what we've seen so far, like they could have a definite impact, although I don't see anything, other than maybe Aetherworks Marvel, that will have actual, or has potential to have like real serious actual Standard impact as far as energy counters go. But we do have some things that give us energy counters that we've seen today that look pretty important. This, Live Fast, and then something I'm going to preview here in just a second. All very effectively and efficiently give us energy counters. And if we can use those as a good enough resource to play something crazy, enough to build a deck around, that would be really nice. We just haven't necessarily seen it yet. Although again, Aetherworks Marvel, maybe. Here's some crazy energy counter generation. I was just talking about this. This is Woodw Weaver's Puzzle Knot. It's just 2 generic mana for an artifact, and when it enters the battlefield, you gain 3 life and get 3 energy counters. And you can pay 2 generic and a green and sacrifice the Puzzle Knot to have you gain 3 life and you get 3 energy counters. Again, this seems really good, to me at least, and I hope that it's part of a cycle. This could easily be part of a cycle, which would be awesome. Because this, would you pay 2 mana to gain 3 and get 3 energy counters? Just buy it, so would you pay 2 mana for that? Probably. Seems like a pretty good deal. And with this card, it curves really well with itself. Turn 2, you get this. You get your 3 energy counters and your 3 life. Stave off aggro for a second. Turn 3, you go ahead and pop it. Get yourself 3 more energy counters and 3 more life. And then 4th turn, you can play Aetherworks Marvel. I was just talking about that card too. You can play Aetherworks Marvel on turn 4. And because of Puzzle Knot, you already have the energy needed to work the Marvel. That's really awesome. And if this is a cycle, you'll be able to do that with pretty much any color. So that seems really nice too. So I like this card a lot. And even without, putting in Aetherworks Marvel into the equation. Just, basically a card that for a split of 5 mana gives you 6 life and 6 energy counters. That just seems like a pretty darn good deal. I'm really excited about the Puzzle Knot cycle. You can't tell. God, please let that be a cycle. But this next card looks pretty awesome too. This is Vorus Gearholek. It's 5 mana. That's 3 generic and 2 green for a 4/4 artifact creature. It's a construct and he's a mythic rare. He tramples, and when he enters the battlefield, you distribute 4 +1/+1 counters among any number of target creatures that you control. 5 mana 8/8 is what it could be. 5 mana 8/8 trample. Just so you know. That's not bad right there. And he seems pretty good for displacing, Comes into play the first time, distribute counters among your whole team, displace him, he blinks, comes back into play, you put more counters on your team. Just for 5 mana, that seems like a pretty good curve topper in some of these aggressive decks. But we do have better stuff in the format, maybe for 5 mana. There's Ishkana, there's Avacyn, Goblin Dark Dweller, Sigarda. There's a bunch of stuff for 5 in this format right now. So I'm not 100% on how much play this guy sees, but I just really want to exploit him. 5 mana 8/8 is possible, or just a huge buff for pretty much your whole team that can be blinked and displaced. All of that seems super nice to play around with, so maybe I want to try it. Here's another 5 mana green card. This is Cultivator of Blades. It's got really cool full artwork right here. This is 5 mana, 3 generic and 2 green, just like the last card. He's a 1/1. Elf Artificer with Fabricate 2. And whenever Cultivator of Blades attacks, you may have other attacking creatures get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is Cultivator's power. So basically, he can be a 3/3 and give your team a buff, +3/+3 buff whenever he swings. That's pretty cool. Or he can make you a couple of tokens and give all your creatures +1/+1 when he swings. And that's not even counting any other buffs that he gets. Maybe from Gideon's Emblem, an aura that you put on him, you know, Nissa put counters on him, whatever buffs, it doesn't matter. This guy swings and your whole team, save for him, gets a huge power bonus. That seems pretty nice. Although you do have to wait until he's able to attack, you know, which sucks. 5 mana for a creature you have to wait a whole turn for there to be any importance for is not usually great, not historically, you know. And again, better 5 mana cards already exist in the format than something like this. Although maybe in, you know, a tokens deck or even a humans deck that likes to generate a bunch of tokens and have, you know, 12 1-drops, decks like that could maybe benefit from something like this, but I'm not 100% on it, honestly. It just looks pretty killable, pretty removable, and I'm not a huge fan, although I definitely appreciate the maybe value on it. Here's another one that's going to need a translation. This is Territorial Devour. It's 4 mana, 3 and a red for a gremlin. It's a 2/2 with trample. And whenever you gain 1 or more energy counters, Territorial Devour gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Worth noting that whenever a card gives you like 3 energy all at once, he still only gets the +2/+2. He doesn't get like +6/+6. But if you gain energy again, a different way later on that turn, he'll get +2/+2 again. So, you know, it's not for each energy, basically. It's for each time that you get energy. So that kind of makes it a little bit worse. I don't like a 2/2 for 4 mana. That's not great. But in Limited, if you build your deck around the strategy, seems pretty good. Maybe that. Although in Constructed, I'm not really seeing it. Here's something else that needs a little bit of a translation. Yet another big giant creature. This is Demon of Shady Schemes, and that feels like a bad translation to me. That may end up being something else. It is 6 mana. That's 3 generic and 3 black. For a 5/5 flying demon with, when Demon of Shady Schemes enters the battlefield, all other creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn. Whenever another creature dies, you get an energy counter. And you can pay 2 generic, a black, and 4 energy to put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield tapped under your control. Text. That's a lot of text. The card does a lot of things. Now, the first thing I thought is kind of weird, probably. The first thing I thought was Cryptolith Rite, you know. You play a bunch of small creatures in Cryptolith Rite early on in the game, enough to get this out by like turn 4, and you don't have to worry about the 3 black and the mana cost because Cryptolith Rite is giving you any color mana. So that's nice. If you play this relatively early, turn 4, you not only flush a lot of their side of the board, perhaps, but you also flush your side of the board, getting a bunch of energy all at one time. That seems cool. And you can bring your own creatures back, you can bring their creatures back. That's nice. Plus, this deck could probably have a few removal pieces in it, Grasp of Darkness, Ruinous Path, so, you know, you can kill their big guys and then use this to get them back. All of that seems good. Just a lot of utility on the card. I like that it's a pseudo board wipe. When it enters the battlefield, I like that you get energy from killing things. That's cool. The creatures that you kill, you can put back on the battlefield. All of that is really, really nice. But will it see play, you know? That is the question. 6 mana is a lot. 3 black is a relatively large commitment. But we'll have to see. You know, the pseudo board wipe is always good. Huge 5/5 flyer is nice. And the fact that it's an energy mill is awesome, too. And reanimation. Look at all the stuff the card does. Alright, they just spoiled this while I was doing the recording here. This is pretty exciting, right? Let's check it out. This is a land, and it's a dual land. This is Concealed Courtyard. It's a land with Concealed Courtyard, enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or fewer other lands. And you can tap it to add a white or a black to your mana pool. What? Okay, awesome. So we got dual lands, and there are really, really good dual lands, you know. Just play them anytime basically after turn 2, you know, turn 3, turn 4, whatever. And it comes into play untapped. It's really, really, really nice. But we have seen lands a lot like this before in the past. Maybe we're just getting an enemy color cycle, who knows, you know. But right now all we know is that we've got a white-black one, which means we'll probably at least have the other enemy color cycle. And maybe all of the guild combinations, all 10. Maybe, possibly. Really love that we're getting new dual lands. That's super sweet. Here they are. Check them out. Yay. This right here is Ghirapur Orrery. This is 4 mana artifact. With each player may play an additional land on each of his or her turns. It also has, at the beginning of each player's upkeep, if that player has no cards in hand, that player draws 3 cards. Okay, so the fact that this is a group hug card, you know, it works for everybody. kind of makes it suck a little bit more, you know, it doesn't make it straight up bad, but it does sort of temper the excitement for the card. And I'm sure that Commander players are, again, stoked for this. A lot of cool Commander stuff in this set. This looks pretty awesome in a multiplayer format all day. So I like the card an awful lot, but I'm not really sure about, you know, other formats. Although people are talking about the card in Legacy, please let that happen. So there's a couple of cards this set that we've seen that probably have some pretty cool applications. We just have to sort of wrap our heads around them and really take a look at some of the other options we have to play. So I really like the card. I just kind of can't wait to see what people come up with, and I'm going to sit down with the card myself and see what's going on with it. I'm just not really sure what to expect from it in Constructed, but again, in EDH, yeah, probably. You know what sucks is that my camera can only record like 23 minutes of footage all at one time, and sometimes I forget that I should turn it off and then start recording again. That being said, I just saw this card like 1 minute after it was spoiled and did a whole thing about it, and I was really, really excited, like, oh my god, check out this card, you guys. Super excited, but I lost all of that. I lost all of that because the thing started recording like 5 minutes ago. So I'm going to do this card again, but know that I am pretty stupid excited about this, and get ready for the word triggered over and over. This is Panharmonicon. This is a 4-mana artifact with, if an artifact or creature entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. Are you triggered? The cool thing about this is that it works with things that are entering the battlefield. Like, if you play something that has an enter the battlefield trigger, it will trigger a second time. That's awesome. And anything you already have on the battlefield that causes things, you know, when things enter the battlefield, they trigger. Obviously, they'll trigger an additional time. All that is really, really cool. I like a lot about this card, and there's probably some disgusting combos with it. Maybe even in Standard, you know, I'm sure that there's probably going to be things people come up with. And yeah, like things like Brood Monitor and Eldrazi Displacer and stuff like that. I mean, it pretty much writes itself, but there's probably something truly, truly gonzo that wins the game immediately in somewhere in Standard, and definitely in Commander. Again, Commander players, this is probably mostly for you, but even in other formats, Legacy, Modern, Standard, there's probably some disgusting bunk with this card. So can't wait to see what we all come up with. I mean, just like Reflector Mage. Reflector Mage is crazy. Like Revelark? How does that even work? Like, there's just a lot of insane stuff. We could probably be here all night talking about this stupid thing. So tell me in the comments what you would do. And keep in mind, I've just seen the card like 5-6 minutes ago of my life. So, you know, I haven't been able to wrap my head around every single card in Magic that works with this, but I know that there are like 1,000 and like a bunch in Standard I've already mentioned. So again, take to the comment section and let me know what just wins the game with this. That's all the spoilers for now. That was a long one because they kept spoiling cards while I was recording. I'm sure they'll keep doing it while I'm editing, so I might be back again tonight, Wizards, and I'll see you then. Appreciate you coming by for these spoilers. If you enjoyed the content, which I sincerely hope you did, you should like the content. That would help me a lot. You should subscribe if you're new for all the other spoilers and other stuff coming out. I say content way too much now in my life. I'm Dev from SBMTG. Thanks for watching, my Wizards.